and the ring of power perceived. Its time had now come.
Today's video is part 3 in our series on the most important events in the history of Middle-earth. In part 1 we looked at the Kings of Númenor and their eventual decline. In part 2 we looked at the Oath of Feanor and the havoc it caused. In today's installment we will look at Bilbo Baggins and what his bringing the One Ring back to Bag End truly meant.
Build me a army worthy of Mordor.
Remember everyone, if you find this video helpful, informative, or entertaining today, please remember to hit that subscribe button below. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on any of our latest videos, and you'll be supporting us to continue creating great content like this.
It was picked up by the most unlikely creature imaginable.
What's this?
Bilbo Baggins of the Shire.
We all know how the story begins. You know, Bilbo is an ordinary hobbit who never goes on any adventures. That is, of course, until Gandalf the Grey comes along and we are treated to some unexpected guests. Bilbo goes on an adventure when he turns 50 and returns to Bag End with a magical ring that he won in a contest of riddles with the creature Gollum. And this caused many a life-changing moment that you could say shook Middle-earth.
You would have a queen!
Do you ever wonder why Gandalf chose Bilbo for the big adventure? What was so special about him that made him different from, you know, any other hobbit, for example? The answer comes to light in the unfinished tales. It turns out that Gandalf had met Bilbo when he was just a little hobbit kid, and then again when he was a tween hobbit. Bilbo was curious and loved chatting with people he didn't know, even dwarves, which was pretty unusual for a hobbit. Gandalf thought that to beat the big scary dragon Smaug and take back the Lonely Mountain they couldn't just use force. They needed to be sneaky. And guess what? Hobbits are naturally really good at moving quietly and not being noticed, thanks of course to years of hiding from the big people. Another interesting thing is that Bilbo was chosen partly because of how he smelled. Strange, right? But the idea was that Smaug the dragon had probably never smelt a hobbit before, so he wouldn't recognize the scent. It is an unusual set of circumstances that brought the One Ring to the Shire, isn't it? Now, if we fast forward a bit, in the book, Frodo waits 18 years before he leaves his home in the Shire to go on his adventure, but in the movie it obviously seems like it happens the very next evening. It's important to notice that when Bilbo has his magical ring, he only uses it once while Gandalf the Wizard is watching, and Gandalf says something important.
There are many magic rings in this world, Bilbo Baggins, and none of them should be used lightly.
Now, something else you might actually wonder from this as well is, why did it take Gandalf so long to even figure out the truth about Frodo's ring? After all, Gandalf is sent there to help fight Sauron, so surely the knowledge of the One Ring should be quite important. Well, in the book, Gandalf starts to have a little suspicion on the very night of Bilbo's big birthday party. After that, Gandalf goes away for almost 18 years. He comes back now and then, but never for any extended time.
Put it somewhere out of sight.
Gandalf knew that Bilbo's lack of aging could be down to the power of a magical ring, but that did not necessarily need to be the One Ring. Gandalf knew a bit about rings because of Saruman, as he had studied them for a very long time. We learn from Saruman of the 3, the 7, and the 9, each of which was adorned by a different precious stone. The One Ring, however, was just plain and unadorned. The whereabouts of most of the other rings were known, and of the 3, Gandalf knew exactly where they were. They had not been lost to time after all, and he was of course in possession of one himself. It was also known that Sauron had reclaimed at least some of the 7, however due to the lack of stone on Bilbo's, it was not going to be one of those either. In the beginning, it was simply that Gandalf just wanted to learn more about Bilbo's ring. He wanted to be sure. So, just in case, before he left the Shire to do some research, he made sure it was safe by asking the Dunedain to watch over it. He then travelled to Minas Tirith twice because he wanted to read some of the scrolls that Isildur had written about the One Ring. He also wanted to find out about the creature Gollum and how he had gotten the ring before Bilbo did too. When Gandalf learned that Gollum found the ring in almost the exact same spot it had been lost many years before, the Gladden Fields, he really began to suspect it might in fact be the One Ring. But while all this was happening, Saruman was secretly trying to find the ring for himself and was not being honest with Gandalf and everyone else. Gandalf was bothered that both Gollum and Bilbo weren't truthful about how they got the ring, and their lies were a bit too similar to be ignored. At that time though, Gollum could not be questioned further as he had escaped, but Gandalf did remember Isildur's description of the ring. It is then that he returned to the Shire to test the ring, and when the flames envelop it and the Elvish script begins to glow, he knows.
There are markings. It's some form of Elvish. I can't read it.
There are few who can.
One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness, bind them. Gandalf was partially fooled, however, and was lulled into doing nothing by the false sense of security that Saruman's knowledge had provided. In part, it was Saruman's assurance that the One Ring was lost. Saruman was, after all, the expert in ring lore, so why would you not believe him? But he is further disturbed by Bilbo's inability to rid himself of the ring, and despite his suspicions, he wanted to be sure. And by the time he is certain, he has taken too long, and the road to Rivendell is much more dangerous than it could have been had Gandalf acted on instinct and acted with more haste. It is hard to judge the actions of the kindly old wizard though, as we know the intent of his heart was always for the greater good. The impact this has on the Shire is nothing short of historic. It will lead Frodo to take a quest that takes on the importance that is literally of the survival or the end of the world. Throughout the war, the Shire is transformed into an industrialized hellscape, pitted and pockmarked like the surface of the moon. In the Third Age, the only way to win once and for all against the forces of Sauron and the darkness that came with it was to destroy the One Ring, as it was made to be seductive, ensnaring all those who came to own it, and it was made so as to be incapable of being destroyed too. As we see, even Frodo fails in the end to rid himself of it in that final moment of truth.
The ring is mine.
Sauron would come to decide that the Valar abandoned Middle-earth, which led him to think that he could do as he pleased. He began to draw all evil towards him and plan, being inhumanely patient and strategic. In reality, the victory over Sauron was unlikely and came down ultimately to an act of Eru, the act of God himself, if you will, being on a smaller scale than the destruction of Numenor in the Second Age, with this time it is through Gollum and a gentle push, or perhaps a little trip, that makes him fall into the fire, and for their plans to finally be able to succeed. As Gandalf tells us,
Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life.
the historical events which culminate in the reunification of the historic kingdoms of Arnor and Gondor by Aragorn as king are intricately linked to Aragorn's role in the Fellowship of the Ring, of course, an event again which was all set in motion when Bilbo returned from the Lonely Mountain with a plain, unadorned ring which was quite precious to him. The impact of this event can be seen as the whole of the story of the downfall of the Lord of the Rings and the return of the king. Though Frodo wishes that the ring had never come to him, he rises to the occasion and does his duty. In the end, he is unable to return to the home he loved, as he really has been changed forever by this quest. In the context of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth and the overall mythology, Bilbo's discovery of the One Ring in The Hobbit would unintentionally set off a chain of events that shaped the history of the world. The ring's corrupting powers come from its creation by the Dark Lord Sauron to corrupt and enslave its owners, making it a very dangerous but a very sought-after artifact. Though it would be Frodo who inherited the ring, which sets off the events of The Lord of the Rings, without Bilbo's initial discovery of that ring in Gollum's cave, the gravely important journey of the Fellowship might very well, or almost certainly, never have taken place, leaving a world that was likely to be destroyed and conquered by Sauron. Bringing the One Ring to Bag End allowed Bilbo to pass it on to Frodo in such a way that he would have the help and aid of the most wise, powerful, and ancient beings in the world, making his role in bringing the ring home one of the turning points of the Third Age and played a significant role in the outcome of what became the War of the Ring. So there we have it. In the grand tale of Middle-earth, Bilbo Baggins, an otherwise ordinary hobbit, fortuitously acquires the One Ring, an event that unknowingly propels the world towards an epic battle between good and evil. The ring, plain yet imbued with an insidious corruptive power, brings forth challenges, transformations, and poignant tales of courage, not only to Bilbo, but also to those who subsequently bear its burden, chiefly Frodo. It morphs the Shire, coerces beings into unimaginable chaos, and ultimately signifies the precipice upon which the balance of power dangerously teeters. The fate of kingdoms, heroes, and everything else is inextricably bound to the ring's journey from the dark recesses of Gollum's cave to the fiery chasms of Mount Doom, affirming that the ring's arrival at Bag End is a historical moment that very well shook the very fabric of Middle-earth.
You finished it. Not quite. There's room for a little more.
And now it is time for my question of the day, which again is a simple one just like before. What subject would you like to see covered in this Day That Shook Middle-earth series? Let me know all of your thoughts and suggestions down in the comment section below. And now to shout out our patrons. You guys are continuing to support our short film The Guard. We are making good progress and I cannot thank you all enough. We of course have the Fire Demon tier member of Nashith and the Wizard Staff tier members of Andrew and Hunter. So finally, if you've managed to reach the end of this video today and you really enjoyed what you've seen, then please do consider hitting that subscribe button and getting that bell icon with all notifications ticked so that you will know when all future uploads go up. And so, thank you for spending just some of your time with me today, and I will see you next time on The Broken Sword.